Hi, my name is Ben Warmerdam, and today we're going to be talking about Palo Alto Networks and why it will be a good buy. My partner Nicholas Drudy will go through, we're going to switch off slide for slide, and he's going to introduce himself, starting on slide 3. So today we're going to look at a few different questions to answer about Palo Alto. So we're going to be looking at the different niches that Palo Alto has developed over time. We're going to look at how Palo Alto has diversified its portfolio, how it deals with political risks, where it does business around the world, what are its financial strengths, what are its financial weaknesses, and how the stockholders fared over time with Palo Alto.
Thanks for introducing me, Ben. As he said, my name is Nicholas J. Rudy. Palo Alto Networks was founded in 2005 to address the issue of the inability to safely enable employees to use modern applications, of which included developing a firewall that could identify and provide fine-grained control of applications. They are now a global leader in cybersecurity and provide security platform solutions worldwide, including firewall appliances and software. The company is evolving with technological developments, including innovative cybersecurity across the cloud, different networks, and mobile devices. Some important points to note are that they acquired more than 60,000 customers to date in 150 plus countries across multiple industries. Over 85 of the Fortune 100 and more than 63% of Global 2000 rely on Palo Alto Networks to improve their cybersecurity posture. Lastly, they're partnered with very prestigious and elite companies such as Amazon, Splunk, Google, and Microsoft.
Now, before moving forward and talking about how Palo Alto actually addresses cybersecurity, I think it's important, we both think it's important to understand a little bit about what cybersecurity is. So I'm going to try to explain it in the best way I can. Cybersecurity is a combination of different aspects, including network security, application security, information security, disaster recovery, and user protection. Now, network security is the practice of securing a computer network from intruders and malware. The goal of application security is to keep software and devices free of threats. The key focus is in the design stage where the application is programmed. Information security protects the integrity and privacy of data information in both storage and transit. Now, this is a very important aspect of cybersecurity as businesses deal a lot with data and data protection. So this is one of the leading business segments of Palo Alto. Disaster recovery is how an organization gathers themselves from a cybersecurity threat or incident. Lastly, user protection is really just educating the workforce or the people that are using, the employees that are using your software about that software so they don't introduce a new threat or virus into the company. With that said, the cybersecurity industry is valued at about $104.6 billion, and that was as of 2017. This industry is expected to grow to $258.99 billion by 2025. That's huge. That is such a gigantic market and such growth that we can see in the cybersecurity sector. The cloud segment is the segment that is expected to drive that growth. Now, cybersecurity is a very interesting sector to talk about just because it changes drastically as technology changes. It has to address the issues that hackers and other infiltrators of businesses, the new methods that they're coming up with, it has to address those issues. When it first began, cybersecurity just focused in on the hardware. So it was a sector mainly focused in on the business's actual devices in-house in the businesses, and protecting those from outside infiltrators, because hackers really weren't as much of an issue in that time period when cybersecurity first was addressed. But as technology advanced and as hackers were able to infiltrate systems from outside of the business, then they started having to develop firewall server protectors, and what they now are integrating as cloud protection, which is the new way that data and information is shared. One thing to address that I think is important is the demand of cybersecurity for small businesses. As Nick addressed in slide number 3, he was talking about how big business and what big businesses use Palo Alto services But I think an important thing is the fact that smaller businesses don't have the capital to really build out their own cybersecurity. So they have to go to a third party or a company that focuses in on that service if they want to grow. Bigger business, a lot of times they'll try to build out their own cybersecurity, which really negates the demand for a third party company. But those smaller businesses, they don't have that. They don't have that ability just because they don't have those resources. And that's really kind of the focus of Palo Alto in these recent years, and that's why they've seen sales spikes. And that's really where the industry is going, because there's going to be continued growth in the economy, and more businesses will continue to grow and need that cybersecurity as they grow.
There are multiple different cybersecurity risks that we should probably discuss. The first being the economic impact. The total cost of cybercrime committed globally in 2018 was over $1 trillion. With regard to security, computers and devices connected to the internet are being attacked on average every 39 seconds. That's over 800,000 attacks in 1 year. With regard to small businesses, roughly 43% of cyber attacks target small businesses, and of which 64% of companies experience web-based or online attacks. These are obviously very costly, and the cost impact is the average cost of data breach in 2020 will exceed over $150 million per attack. With all that being said, the relative cost for a company to have Palo Alto services is far less than the cost to be incurred if there were to be a data breach. With regard to Palo Alto Network's stock profile, they're currently trading at $245.56. They have a forward PE of 42.56, which is average in the sector. The earnings and revenues they have beat for the past 4 quarters. One very important thing to note is they have had a 29% sales growth year over year. As you can see, the earnings per share history and the EPS trend are very promising. And with regard to those two, the investors have been very happy over the last few years, and the future outlook is looking very strong, which is a good sign for investors.
Moving on ahead, now here is a chart of the world marketplace of Palo Alto and where they do business. They have a total of 54,000 customers worldwide. Now this is up from 42,500 in 2017, which, as you can tell, it's a huge growth. And as you can see from the chart, most of their business is based in America. They were started in America, but they've, in recent years, been really pushing to expand into the Asian markets, the European markets, and the Middle Eastern markets, and a little bit in Africa. An important detail to point out is the fact that cybersecurity is virtually immune to political risk in the sense that the sector is not impacted as much as other sectors such as infrastructure or healthcare, for just a few, for example. With that said, every business is going to need cybersecurity, as Nick was talking about in the last slide, and regardless of what laws are passed, they're still going to need cybersecurity because there's always going to be hackers out there, and there's always going to be infiltrators of the business. Another important detail to point out is many of Palo Alto's services are subscription-based. That's important because subscriptions, they renew year to year. So when a business takes on Palo Alto services, they're charged for those services year over year, and Palo Alto is making those revenues year over year. So it's not a one-time service; it's a year-to-year subscription-based model. Palo Alto offers several different services, but in the last year they introduced this new product called Cortex, and this is an important product because Nick and I believe this to be a key driver for the business and where the business is going for future years. It's going to change cybersecurity forever, and it is the reason, and it gives that business the ability to adapt to the technology changes, the technological changes that happen over time. Cortex is an AI software based cybersecurity, and it will evolve with those technological changes.
So Cortex is a revolutionary new security software system that Palo Alto Network has introduced, and with regard to scalability, big businesses need the ability for their security to scale out to protect large amounts of information, as most of their businesses operated through the cloud and online. With regard to machine learning and AI, Cortex is AI adaptable and uses knowledge gathered from prior attacks to advance its own ability to protect the business. They're always doing investigations. An important aspect of being cloud secure is finding where and when previous attacks had happened. So this knowledge can then be used to adapt the software and make it more sustainable to the business model. Lastly, expanding data sources. So this expands the amount of information used in the adaptation process of the protection software.
Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that explanation of Cortex. It's a really cool software, and this is actually an infographic about what that software is and how it operates. It's kind of confusing, but basically what it's saying is all of the data goes into the Cortex data lake, which is then integrated into those Cortex apps. And those Cortex apps are they're specialized for the business model. So depending upon how that business protects its software and its data protection needs, it kind of just molds into that business model. So as you can see, this is a comparison between Palo Alto's and other leading competitors within the industry and sector. If you look through the chart, they're killing it on cache. But if you look at net cache, there's a little detail that I think it's important to point out.
So the Palo Alto company structure is based on a stock-based compensation, and this expense rose 7% last year to over $120.6 million, or 28% of its revenues. So that's why excluding this figure produces double-digit non-GAAP earnings growth, but when it's included, it shows a big GAAP loss. So job applicants might want a big stock option package on top of their cash salaries, which makes it tough to reduce the stock-based compensation as a percentage of revenue.
Yeah, and so that's why it drives up their operating expenses relative to their competitors, which is a really important indication to point out. Because we believe Palo Alto, as a strong company that's generating a lot of revenues relative to their competitors, it's just they have higher expenses because of the way that they compensate their employees. With that being said, we did some analysis and we believe that $240.50 is a good buy point for Palo Alto. Thank you for watching, and we hope you consider our stock pitch of Palo Alto, and we hope to win the $300.
Have a great day.